Well. So this has been a long time in the making, I think. Aicila, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I don't remember. Oh, we met on the Wisdom app.
Wisdom.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's like this is the best thing I got out of that. I mean, it's a great community, but I definitely feel like this was and it was actually content driven. Darian and I were both on if you haven't heard of Wisdom, you're amongst many people. Uh, but we ended up hopping into each other's little chats because we were talking about I think similar things and also the way that you talked about it I found to be inviting and well aligned. And then we ended up sharing guests for podcasts and next thing you know it's like, hey, why don't we try something?
Yeah, now we're trying something. So it's
So
what's
now we
good in
are.
the world is really awesome. I think we just, I was chatting with you. I was like, man, we need to do something together. And it feels like the kind of the gravity of the world is feels like it can be negative based off of the news you're receiving, the environment you're in. But like when you'll hear everyone who listens to this in our the intro theme song, there's a lot of good things happening in the world, and we just
Yeah.
wanted to share those things with you. So think with that, we're going to definitely share a few stories apiece about something that is hopefully not too crazy, but crazy enough to make it fun. Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's something that when we were talking about, what to try, Darian and I both acknowledge that we tend to be serious people. So the goal
yes.
here is, and I can't say that I won't continue to be serious, but this will be positive and serious if it is.
Positively serious, it'll
I
be.
will be seriously positive.
Let's be seriously positive. Be seriously positive. I have a story I want to share
All
that
right, I want to hear it. I'm
I thought
ready.
was actually like I like heartwarming stuff. I'm like very into stuff that's heartwarming, but there's this guy, so I'm gonna bring it up here on my phone here. So this gentleman who his name is Mo Hunter, and he spent a month in a coma
Hmm.
from he had this illness, and it was like meningitis and tuberculosis in his brain, and he had no artistic ability beforehand, like zero interest in arts and crafts, artistic ability. But he came out of this coma, and he was like obsessed with art. So he says, I really wasn't creative before in the slightest. In fact, people used to laugh at my drawings. And so he said, but he came out of it feeling like he wanted to do art. So he's from England, and he fought for his life. They installed a shunt to drain fluid from his brain, which left him in a coma, which is how he got into that situation. He woke up, he had no memory. He woke up on October 13th, 2004. I don't remember anything before 2004, he said. Nothing. Crazy.
Hmm.
Everything has been relayed to me by family and friends, but I can't believe this newfound ability. Everyone's shocked by it. And now he actually, I believe he sells his art, and he spends a lot of time creating art. Pretty
Hmm.
awesome, I think. Like,
That is amazing.
right? Like what the brain does. Like, where
Hmm.
was this ability before, you know?
Right. I mean, was it there and or did it get somehow created through the shift in his brain activity? Like, I mean, I guess we never know, but it's a good reminder that there are likely many things in here that we don't know and what could be opened up by, hopefully other means, but still, even something that could seem like a tragedy might have a new opportunity within it.
Yeah, I was like, I've heard of this before. Like, you see it in a movie normally. It's like someone in a movie, something happens. It's usually like a very hokey rom com movie or something. Person wakes up out of a hospital bed miraculously out of a coma. They look
Mm-hmm.
amazing, by the way. They look amazing in the coma. It's like
Your hair is always really
hair's
nicely done,
done.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like
That's
beautiful.
how
It
I
looks
look in the morning too,
right,
always. Yeah,
right. Very put
yeah.
together, right?
Right.
And
I've
it's
never
like
looked that put together. So I guess I need a coma.
and it's like it's always a story, this new ability and things of that nature. And it just I think it shows in real life the potential of the human brain and the potential to be creative. There's so much we don't know about our brain. I mean, we know a lot, but then these type of stories, I think, make it interesting to be like, well, what could we accomplish I mean, hopefully you don't have to go through a coma for it, but what could we accomplish if we applied ourselves more too, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, that's one of the reasons. I mean, I get on my little soapboxes, but it's people tend to be multifaceted, and frequently the reasons that they don't express their many opportunities and possibilities is less because of them and more because there's something in their way, right? And
Yeah.
so I think, that the transformation of something like a tragedy can be that you get to start over, and so the things that were in your way aren't. And sometimes that's an idea about yourself, or sometimes it's a systemic issue that you're facing, or it could be, your community or whatever. And so, like, the ways in which we can uplift and support each other to kind of come over those, I would say, unnatural but ever persistent barriers is one of my motivations for doing stuff like this. Is that
Yeah.
together we all rise together, and how do we create that opportunity? Because what would happen if more people got inspired like that and felt that drive to create and really let themselves live in it? How do we create a world where that's more normal
Right, right.
and celebrated?
Here's a question. Do you have a hidden talent or creative piece that other people don't know about you?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's hidden. I'm a writer. I actually am I'm working with a writing coach to get my first novel written in the next 6 months. I'll put that out there publicly now. Yay.
Yay, it's out there now. Come on. Get it out. Come on.
So yeah, so I started that process, and I don't know if that's hidden. I know a lot of people know that I write, but I don't know if anyone modern in my life knows that it is that deeply important to me. So
Well, they know now. So
they
that's
do. It's over. My hidden talent. No, what's yours? What's your hidden
oh man.
or less obvious pursuit?
Less obvious pursuit. Well, I would say music is probably a less obvious pursuit. Like a lot of my professional existence is fitness and wellness, and obviously I have a podcast and stuff like that. But back in mid 2000s or so, I was making a lot of music.
Huh.
And like enjoyed making it through the computer and stuff, beats and all that. And it was less about like putting it out. It was more of just like I like the tedious nature of making things, which I think
Mm-hmm.
you and I talked about this, doing like tedious
Yeah.
tasks, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, I do. I like that. There's a meditative quality to it. I just finished working on. I was knitting a scarf, and it was a little complicated, but there's this tedious, like, repetitiveness to knitting that is quite soothing and meditative, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think there's a lot of things like that. I think some people, I mean, I was an athlete in college, track athletes, people find running to be very meditative.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, it
there's
is,
right, there's
right?
a creative streak to it, especially long distance running. I was a sprinter, but I put in a lot of miles regardless. I doing it, and there's
Yeah.
a meditative kind of creative streak, especially if you're kind of unplugged, I find with
Mm-hmm.
it. A lot of people are plugged into some sort of stimulus, but I think without it, you start to open up your mind to other opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when I was young, my dad used to go deer hunting. I'd visit him in the summers. This relates, I promise. And
It's not a
and
random story.
yeah, it's not totally random, but you just made me think of that. And the last year that he got, I was with him, and we went out and we climbed this tree stand together, and you wait for the deer to come out. And he used to bow and arrow, so and I swear, I mean, at the time, I felt like we were there for an eternity. I was like 14. It was maybe like 6 or 7 hours, right? Waiting for dusk and for the deer to come down to the water. And I had my Walkman and my book and something else. And he just was sitting there listening to what the leaves. I was 14, so I had no curiosity whatsoever. I was like, yeah, cool. This is what we're doing. I got my Pepsi. And what you're saying now, like that lack of stimulus, because it wasn't so much a lack of stimulus, was as an attunement to nature that was quite different than mine because of his experience and his own knowledge and skills of it. And I think there is something that we lose because we move so fast all the
Yeah.
time, that there's a benefit to that. And the running without that thing in your ear, which I admit I always have, but I'm still 14, I guess, in that way. But yeah, no, I think
Yeah,
that's it's the sweet to remember that, to
it is
be
sweet.
in that experience. And what is it to just be here? Like what you said in one of our shows that we did before, that, there's an external motivation we need, and maybe that part of that motivation can be to simply be in that experience.
Yeah. We're off to a
So
good start. This is
yeah.
pretty good.
Okay, I
It
like
always leads to other things,
yeah. Uh-huh.
and that I think are interesting. But what's your story? What's the next story? Yeah.
Well, I have two, but I'll start with this one. I'll send you a link. My friend told me about this yesterday. It actually happened in July. They have made carbon neutral jet fuel. So they've
Mm.
synthesized it rather than mining it. And they're specifically using, this is an EU program that's called, I want to say solar. I pulled up the link so I wouldn't have to have it all in my head. But it's called, solar to fuel or something like that. So they are they've made a solar reactor in order to create this kerosene so that it will be carbon neutral. So when it's created and burned, it emits less than or equal to um, what they sequester or don't produce in the creation of it. So that because that's one of the things, I do a lot of work in climate justice. And the reality is, like, I'm just, like I said, I have my headphones, I'm doing this podcast, I like my laptop, I like my electric energy, and I like heat, all these things. And so we have to recognize that, climate change and climate action is going to require some of these innovations, and people are doing it. They're innovating a way for us to still be able to fly over to Europe and see things, and yet not do it at the expense of our environment. So I find that to be very heartwarming and exciting.
I
It's
like
highly geeky
we're
as
gonna
well.
go in we're gonna go in different directions on these stories today. I feel I'm like my second story. I'm like, oh man, this is nothing like that.
No. Well, we
But
can see, and and also like I brought a couple, but I'm also happy to pick a theme if you want to at some point. We
oh,
could
this is
see.
great. I like the
Okay.
surprise. You're going with like the cerebral, like good feeling story. Mine's gonna be like weird happenings. I'm telling you, it's just like this
Mhm.
might be my lane, like the weird stories that are happening. Like,
I like it.
yeah, but I love that. I'm very much into um climate and climate justice and understanding the importance of the environment. And if you've never heard me before, the origin of that for me is clearly my psychedelic use. Just putting it out there. It's
Hmm.
just what I put everything out there about me. There's nothing, I don't hide anything. How it is. But I feel like I've read some articles about electric planes actually that actually are currently in production in regional airports or regional
Hmm.
flights. So these are good steps towards a more climate efficient transportation in the air, because I think a lot of us know we're in this, that air travel tends to be a pretty large culprit
Yep.
of air pollutants, things of that nature. So this is a very positive story with that.
Right. Like, and that's, to me, it's just one more point in that, there are reasons to be concerned. I mean, a lot of the issues that we see today can be tracked to climate change. Like a lot of the refugees that are fleeing different war-torn countries, part of the reason
Yeah.
the wars are occurring is the decreased resources. Like there's a through line that we can see. And just understanding that these are man-made crises, they're expressed in nature. But the upside of that is that if we as humans made those crises, that we should be able to create the tools to address them, whether it's a limit in our actions or, in this case, an innovation. And that gives me a lot of hope that maybe that we together will be able to take care of each other, and still have heat and trips to see people and need things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of think, and we do our part together. So I'll share my second story.
Please do.
Well, and we can end cap with yours. My other one is so this is actually an older story that I heard about more recently, but I loved it. It's called Grandmother Power: Improving Mental Health One Conversation at a Time. I don't know if you've heard of this program, because it's been around for about 15 years, it looks like. But this gentleman in Zimbabwe, he was one of, at the time, I want to say, two psychiatrists in the country. And he had a young girl who was, her family had reported that she was suicidal. And so he was like, why don't you have her come in, send her bus money? But there was some challenges and ended up not seeing her. And she did end up taking her own life. And he recognized that he couldn't be everywhere. He couldn't be in these communities where these people who had real need for that kind of support. And so he went in and trained the grandmothers in the communities and trained them in how to recognize what they call common mental health disorders, depression, anxiety, kind of thing. And then to do what they call, I think it's called problem solving therapy, as well as cognitive behavioral therapy. So they go sit on the benches, and community members would come and sit next to them, and they'd say, "How are you doing?" And the grandmas kind of had a training in how to encourage the conversation, but they also had a connection to the community, right? They lived there. And then they would help these young people, or honestly anyone, but it was, they primarily expected it to young people, kind of work through the things they were facing, which was often resource issues. But because, once again, these people lived in the community, they were able to provide practical support. And so it was highly successful. They replicated it all over the country, and they've talked about even replicating it here in like the US, in places like New York, where there's a density of population similarly, and a very limited amount of access to mental health. And it also gives these older members of community purpose, something they can do that provides a real benefit to the people in their locale. So it's kind of a neat program that really brings in a bunch of different things to provide a very necessary service.
Oh, that's pretty cool, actually. It
right?
reminds me of this high school that's in this area here in kind of the Whatcom County, very northern Washington state. It's a generational high school. And I guess the whole term is basically that it's not a normal high school, generally like math, science, the whole thing. The whole aspect is that kind of the community participates in the high school. So they bring in kind of like elders and people who come in and mentor and talk to the high schoolers throughout the day. And so you get kind of this village raising people mentality with it. And it seems very similar. If you can't, you're scaling something, which is essentially what it seems like this person was doing, using the people in the community to be, in many ways, the workers for helping with this and relaying the message. I love when people come together to help each other and things like this. I think it's a huge theme that needs to be put out there more often today, and especially in our society, that we're better together than we are apart.
Yeah. Well, and in that we all have something to offer, right? My uncle used to say, sometimes people give you the opportunity to see what not to do. And I would say I have on occasion been that example. But still, it's something to offer. Like, don't follow that example. We all have a way that we can show up and participate. And there is, honestly, I think most people really want to. I mean, if you have kids and I have kids, and I just, when they're young, they're so willing to share and they want to help. Like it's, you're sitting there and you're trying to get your kitchen floor cleaned or whatever, and they want to help, and you're like, oh, but you have to let them help, because you have to show them that their contribution matters and that they can be part of doing that, so that they feel like they understand, because they start out wanting to. And so, like, once again, not getting in that way and supporting that, I think it leads to people who grow up like this and think, I want to help my whole country, right? Like, that's so I think it's so amazing that he said something like 70,000 people in the 10 or 15 years have been trained and gone through this in some fashion. I might be misquoting. I sent some links, and I'll include them and stuff, so that way, if you want to fact check me, go for it.
Fact check us anytime. It's totally fine.
Anytime.
I'm okay being wrong. What's the big deal being wrong? I don't know. It's just, you're wrong about a lot of things in life. I mean, I think about the stuff I used to be into that I thought was a certain way. It's different now. It's just growth. That's all it is
Oh,
growth,
right.
you know?
I know, like 10 years ago, there were things that I was like, this is how it is. That now I'm like, oh, please do not repeat this to me. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think most of us have that, right? Like you said, that's part of growing. We
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be the same as we were 10 years ago.
I'm definitely not the same. I
Yeah.
was 10 years. I'm always on the move with something. And I love the helping. This story is so heartwarming to me. I think is just helping others, serving other people is really
Yeah.
important. There may be not a greater time than right now to help serve other people and give of yourself. And especially with mental health being such a very large component coming through COVID and those things, it's such an important topic to discuss and to have good news about that. I think is really
Mhm.
important as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to go with my story here, my next story here.
I'm
Let me
ready
pull
for
this
it.
up. This one again, I think I got the different stories here. Go
I
on.
like it.
All right, this one, I immediately when I thought we are doing this, I'm like, I'm going to go in a very different direction than I normally would probably go. But this one's called "What a Power Couple." What a power couple friendship looks like. So essentially, it's about these women, Anna Corzin and Mackenzie Morrison. They're more than best friends. They consider themselves to be soulmates. The
Hmm.
really cool thing about it is they are 52 years apart in age.
Huh. Okay.
So um, the age gap is very interesting. They said it makes their bond stronger, even though they have totally different backgrounds in every possible way. We're really soulmates. So basically, they met each other, and one was in the television career industry, the older lady, and the other one is building an online following. So basically, the younger woman helped the older woman become a TikTok star.
Oh, fun. There you
Right? So she
go.
helped her. It was like they were just building all this stuff that they were doing together. And she's like, I can help you put together a really good branding campaign, all this stuff for the work you're doing. And the older lady didn't know a lot about it, but she really helped her out. So they really had no plan, but it ended up being a perfect plan. And in a matter of days, Annie, the older lady, had 200,000 followers.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, it was quick, right? I mean, and she said, "This is the first time in my life, the older lady, that I'm being called beautiful."
Hmm.
The commenters say, "You're gorgeous. You're beautiful. I love your outfit. I love your hair. I love your style. You look so great." She said, "I've never heard this in my life, especially not in Hollywood." What a
Oh, wow.
blessing that is, when two people from
Yeah.
very different generations come together. Again, the story of helping each other, being there for each other, and a positive story about social
Hmm.
media, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, let's be honest. The reason we get so frustrated with social media is because it does have the power to be a positive influence. There are people I know that live up in the mountains that for them through COVID, Facebook was like the way they were able to actually engage with people. And so that's the part that can sometimes be kind of a bummer because like look at that. It has so much opportunity for a powerfully positive connection and amplification. So that's so sweet.
It is sweet. I mean, think about I wouldn't have known you if it wasn't for some version of app or
Mhm.
program, social media, just
Yeah.
that collision, which isn't funny. Like I spent almost negative amount of time on the Wisdom app. I just
Yeah.
stopped being on it very quickly.
Yep.
Just because I had a lot of other things going on. But I mean, what did I get out of that? The primary thing, the best thing I got out of that was meeting you, Aicila.
Yeah.
Easily. That was easily
Yeah.
the
Same
best
here.
part of that. Right. So it's like
Mm.
it was worth it to try it. If
Yeah.
nothing else for that.
Well, and I'll say that that's for me, Twitter was that for a long time. I'm kind of I'm interested to see what the next
Mm-hmm.
evolution is, but the number of people that I've met on Twitter that are from different walks of life, different parts of the world, different backgrounds that I've learned and grown through those actual genuine connections, like not just back and forth tweets, but like
Yeah.
a real engagement. And that's the promise of it. The promise of it is that opportunity to connect, and it's the I don't know whether it's the profit motive or something that takes us away from that, but it can happen. I think for me the biggest part is to recognize that we have to use the tools and not let the tools use us. Like you said, you had a lot of things going on and you were able to say, oh, I can't give this too much of my time.
Yeah.
But we had this opportunity, we connected, and we continued to engage in different, shared things. I have so many guests who came on my show because you were like, hey, you should invite this person. I had a good conversation with them. And I'm like, thank you, I will.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Why not? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like, it's just a conversation, but you never know where it leads. I mean, I'm sure those two ladies, they probably never thought they would be friends. I
Yeah.
mean, they thought, well, you think the age gap is so big, and how would they even meet each other? But they had a passion together for fashion. That
Mm-hmm.
was like their link, and they connected, and then they found out that they had this very soulful connection. They just wanted to be around each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. No, it's really sweet. Well, and it's something I think about sometimes, the way that we, at least in America, are culturalized is we spend a lot of time with people who are right in our age, right? Like
Yeah.
third grade or whatever. We used to have that multi-room classroom or multi-age classroom. And it's unnatural to be around people that are just your age. There's very few times in your life where that's how it breaks down, right? Like it's usually interest based or job based or community based, and there's this cross differences engagement that you don't get in school. It's everybody's right there in the same place. It's weird.
Yeah, it's funny. They mentioned in the story how the younger lady, she said she would always just hang out with people her age, and then she would just compare herself to the people
Mm-hmm.
her age, and she didn't like that feeling. And that comparison aspect, I think it becomes a part of that narrative sometimes. Is like, well, I'm not as good as this person or that person. We're the same age, but we're at different points of our lives and success and stuff. And I think it just broke down those barriers for those two ladies. And I just think like when you meet someone, there's a magic in meeting people, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a magic in meeting specific people. I have this whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like this is like a big thing with me. I know a
Okay.
lot of people, but there's very few people that I want to spend a lot of time with. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
negative thing for me personally. It's just that it's all about the feels for me, the connection. And if I feel
Yeah.
that connection, then I want to invest more time in it. It doesn't mean that the people I don't spend a lot of time with aren't important to me. It's literally just like a feeling for me for
Mm-hmm.
that.
Well, I mean, we can't. It's also practical, right? Like, if you
Yeah.
want to spend this much with everybody, you eventually just everything's very simple, like limited and shallow, and so the opportunity to recognize, like, oh, this thing right here, this is an exciting partnership, or this person, like, I do believe that there are ways in which other people help us open doorways into ourselves
Yeah.
and we can help them, that is unique. And I kind of celebrate that because it means there's enough to go around, right? Like
Yeah.
if it's unique, then I don't have to do that for everybody, and not everybody I meet has to do that for B. But when it fits, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I actually talked to my buddy Simon about this, who I met through my podcast, and we do every 2 week deal about reviewing 80s movies, Arbiters of Bad Taste. It's hilarious, by the
I know, it's
way.
so fun.
It's so much fun, and we were talking about this exact thing, and it was kind of like we called it like the hang factor. And I know for me, it's all about the hang factor. Like when I meet someone, if I'm going to spend more time, do I envision myself being able to hang with this person, hang out with this person? Is this
Mm-hmm.
someone, or do I envision this person like it's nice to know this person, but I probably wouldn't want to like have a beer with them. Or
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to just spend a lot of time with them. It's not negative for me with that. It's how they make me feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mentioned to him on the episodes coming out tomorrow is like, I want to be someone people feel like they want to hang with. Like, I love that. Like, I just love that. I can see somebody and be like, that person's fun.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell that person's fun. People love being around them. I like to be that person. I like really enjoy that.
Nice. Well, I look forward when you are out in the Colorado area. We'll
Exactly.
have to hang.
It's all about the hang factor. I'm telling you, Aicila. It's like, and I feel like you know it pretty quickly when you meet somebody. You know the
Mm-hmm.
hang factor. It's like, okay, this is a nice kind of more surfacey thing, and maybe this one's a little deeper. And then there's a few people where it's like, we're gonna be hanging out, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's gonna be some crazy stories.
Oh yeah. No, when I was in high school, I used to do things based for a little while on what's this is going to be a great story.
Yes, I still
and,
do that.
and then you're just like, sometimes when I'm like, all right, well, let's see what happens. At the very least, it'll be a great story, right? Like we
Yeah,
tried this thing, so
I still do that. It's that I'm much more responsible about it. But I'm still like, I'll turn to somebody. I'm be like, you know what? It's all about the story. Let's go.
mm-hmm.
Like,
Let's see what happens. And we'll have fun, right? Like
yeah.
that's the thing about my close friends is we could do something ridiculous or we could chill at the house and have
Yep.
some tea and it's all going to be really joyful. And I think that is just important to remember too that this what's good in the world is that there's a lot of messages that tell us that what's going to satisfy us is over there and
Yeah.
actually it's just right here. It really is. You
It's
got
just
it all
right
right
here.
here. You got
I love that.
it. And so, it's okay if you don't have that fancy car or the funky house or whatever it is. Like those things are, I mean, we all need shelter, but
Yes.
what I'm talking about, like that next level of like commodification, it's just a distraction.
Yeah.
You can chill out on your couch. Your couch does not have to be fancy or new. It's still
No.
gonna be, if it's uncomfortable, put a blanket over that.
Yeah, yeah. You're
Like,
like, let's
you're
just
good to
cover
go.
that up.
Just cover it up. You're just
Just
like,
like
add some
cover that.
padding.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, some of the best times I've had have been in like crazy dive bars, like that don't look like you would not go in. But I've
Mhm.
had like the best times. I've had
Yeah.
like amazing times in super high end places. It's just, it's the vibe though. It's the people for
Hmm.
that. And I just feel like I'm trying to be very intuitive about that in my life. It's like, okay, I'm feeling something here. I need to pursue that. And I think also like I like when people are very much like positive back and like
Yeah.
they show you their positivity. They show you they want to be around you. Like that is very attractive to me in connecting with people. And I felt like that with you. I felt like you, like I would put something out or something, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna reshare. You should reshare. Or
Hmm.
message me something. I'm like, oh, this person is like reaching out and being
Hmm.
positive. And I encourage anybody listening, reach out and be positive. It makes a huge difference in how you feel about things. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very inspiring. I feel that same way that, when I reply or respond, having somebody engage and be
Yes.
interested and excited, like it's an amplifier. It helps everything to get a little bit bigger. And the other thing I'll add is look for things to be positive about. It's just like once again, everything that comes to our door, it comes to our door because somebody else wants us to have it. And usually in our commodified society, that means they're trying to create a need in us. And and that need is probably or about something they want to sell us. And so if you make an intention about where you put your energy and your focus, you look for, things that uplift you or things that are going to bring you into the world you want to be in, you're going to have a lot more control over how you feel and what you're focused on and how that shows up. So that would be my tip. So look for something positive. Tell
Look
us
for
what's
some.
good in the world.
Tell us what's good in the world. I'm going to tell you what's good from the stories that I presented today. Is just like there is probably some amazing creative streak that you have inside you. More than likely, I feel most people are very creative on some form.
Mm-hmm.
Move towards that creativity. And the second story, move towards connecting with people, no matter what age they are, where they come from, whatever it is. You may be finding your next best friend. You never know. So be creative and connect with other people that you don't know.
I second that. I think that's a great thing to end on. You might find your next best friend if you look.
I think we're good to
Okay.
go.